How's it going, everybody? CJ here, back with another video. We're doing another first thoughts. If you enjoy this series, remember to comment down below what you're going to do with Gadrak. We're doing Gadrak today, by the way. Comment down below what you'd do with Gadrak. Like this video, comment, subscribe to the channel. Check me out on Patreon if you really want to support the channel. And let's hop into this. So, Gadrak. It's a weird card. Honestly, it doesn't seem like that fun of a commander. It just, the best things I think you could do with it can be done better by other commanders, and I'll actually be mentioning the other commanders because they're probably going to end up going in this deck. But there's two different routes that I immediately thought of to take this. One route is probably the lesser of the worst of the two, and that is just a heavy removal based route, just to try to kill as much stuff as possible every turn, and go with a lot of flyers. Go dragons mostly, actually, because it works really well in the deck. But you're using cards like Earthquake, Magma Quake, or Molten Disaster to just eliminate everything that isn't flying, just to get a lot of treasures that you can use to cast your big dragons. You can use stuff like Subterranean Tremors, which is similar, except it's got different modes on it, it's actually a very cool card. And like Ryusei, to be able to just deal extra damage, like get 5 damage in when it dies. I mean, doing stuff like this is just going to generate you a lot of mana that you can dump into dragons, that you can somehow blow up everything but those dragons again. It seems interesting. It doesn't seem great. I don't think it's a great deck, but it's a deck. It's something that you could do with Gadrak, and I don't know. It seems interesting. Maybe worth a shot. If you end up trying out that way, let me know how it goes. The main way I think that this card should be played is as more of a aristocrats or aristocrat artifacts, stuff like that. Aristosac, that's what we're going with, Aristosac. With cards like Duretti, Scrap Savant, you've got Scrap Mastery, which is basically, well, Duretti, Scrap Savant, just because you can tick down to sack something, bring something back. Then you can also do the same thing with Goblin Welder, Goblin Engineer, and Goblin Engineer even tutors. Trash for Treasure is just a one-shot of doing it. Scrap Mastery, which I accidentally mentioned already, is basically like a living death for artifacts, which is pretty cool, especially if you fill up your graveyard. You can do stuff with Feldon because you're going to have a graveyard with a lot of artifacts. Might as well reanimate them. Specifically, you're going to want to run artifact creatures, obviously, because Gadrak only triggers off creatures. So you're running a lot of artifact creatures here. Specifically ones that have death triggers or ETB triggers. Slowbad, and so just some other good sack outlets include like Slowbad. You can do Trading Post, which is an interesting card that lets you do a lot of different things. Bosch as a kind of like a machine gunner with artifacts. Perforos, the Bronze Blooded, because you can sneak attack them in and then they'll die. And Scrapyard Recombiner as a sack outlet that also tutors out constructs. So if you want to go get a construct out of your deck, you can just go and do that. Some good artifact creatures that you can add into the deck, so that way you got good stuff to sack that'll give you a lot of value. That's what I'm talking about now. Your Battle Sphere. Just create a ton of tokens by recurring it over and over. Solemn Simulacrum, it draws you cards and it ramps you, which are two big things that red can't do well. So it's a good way to do it. Especially being able to recur it, and it also gives you treasure, so it's extra ramp. Wormcoil Engine. I mean, that should be obvious. You create some disgustingly good tokens while filtering a 6/6 over and over and over. Mew Retriever, Scrap Trawler, and Junk Diver. God. All of those are just very good because when they die, you can bring something back, so it just generates a lot more value. Duplicant. It's a good exile on a stick, so you just bring it in, exile something, sack it, bring it in, exile something, sack it. Seems very solid in the deck. Meteor Golem, same thing, except you're just blowing up permanents, any permanent. Burnished Heart, this one you're not really going to sack, but it's a creature that has a death trigger that you activate. So you sacrifice it to go and get a couple lands, then you can recur it and just ramp that way. Treasure Keeper is an interesting one. When it dies, reveal a card. So you basically cascade when it dies. So, I mean, it's just solid value. And then a couple of cards that aren't actually creatures, but are also very good to recur, include like Ichor Wellspring, and I think it's Mycosynth Wellspring. So Mycosynth Wellspring goes and gets you lands to your hand, while Ichor Wellspring lets you draw cards. Both are pretty solid in the deck. Then you got Nev's Disc, because being able to blow up the board whenever you need to is pretty good. My dog is crying again. Hopefully you guys can't hear that. And now I'm just going to talk about some very good cards in artifact decks. You got stuff like Foundry Inspector to make your artifacts cost less. Same. Oh, you can't really use Ethereum Sculptor in this deck because it's blue, so never mind that. Mystic Forge, just a very, very powerful card. Lets you cast them off the top of your library. Sculpting Steel, so that way you can get extra triggers and you can copy whatever artifact creatures that are very valuable that you have out in play. And Ugin's Nexus, because who doesn't like extra turns? Plus, you can do some shenanigans in this deck with Hellkite Tyrant as a win con. Throw in Mycosynth Lattice, and you just steal everyone's permanents that you hit. You could do stuff with Treasure Nabber, Mycosynth Lattice. Whenever they tap a land, you get control of it. It can be pretty disgusting. Mycosynth Lattice is a very good card for this deck, too. You can Mycosynth Lattice and Vandal Blast. That's always fun. And so, yeah. Thanks, dogs. That's what I think you should do with Gadrak. Sorry about that. That's what I think you should do with Gadrak, the Crown-Scourge. If you guys enjoyed this video, remember, comment down below. You can yell at my dogs in the comments if you want to. Subscribe to the channel. Check me out on Patreon. Do all those shenanigans. And we will see you guys next time. Peace out, everybody.